Good afternoon, midday lovers. This is 91.3 and I am back. I am Olaoluwa Awe, the news lady filling in for Paula and Ify. And it is time to talk parenting. If you're a parent, you have kids, then this is the place for you to be. And I don't do this, or I won't do this alone today. Of course, I'll do it with the amazing Yetty Williams, who is the CEO of Lagos Moms. She joins me now. Good afternoon, Yetty.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm fine. How's the afternoon today, really? Let's speak more plainly. How's it going? How's the weather? Is it perfect out there?
It's going. Can't complain. Not too bad.
Yeah, yes, definitely not too bad. And yes, we'll be talking about something really fun, something really interesting, and that will be social media. How do we really make the best of it? Just yesterday I talked about how, to an extent, some countries, some people, I think in the US or so, filed a lawsuit against some social media platforms, saying that they have encouraged that addiction, that unhealthy social media consumption and practices amongst people in the country. And lawsuits against social media companies are not new. The major social media platforms we have lately have had them. And this brings to question, how exactly do we make the best of it? How exactly do we use social media platforms in such a way that it doesn't really get unhealthy? We don't get addicted. And what are the opportunities there, especially for parents? That's the conversation we'll be having today, Yetty Williams and I. So let's talk about social media. To you as a parent, do you think it does more harm than good for parents and for children?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that introduction. And you're absolutely right. It was yesterday, I think. Yeah. I also came across that news that about 41 states, I believe, in the in the US, have sued Meta being the parent company of Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I think specifically it was around Instagram and how it has increased body dysmorphia in teenage girls.
Yeah.
So basically saying that Instagram has been aware of the negative effects of the platform, and particularly around teenagers and the use of social media. So, like you said, this all kinds of unfortunate stories come out of social media, the good, but usually it's the bad that makes it to the headlines.
Of course.
And there's been a lot of sad stories that have come out. Children recently, I think there was one a few months ago, the 17-year-old boy in the US who was groomed by a ring of Nigerians based in Nigeria on Instagram, and they got him to send pictures of himself, in a compromising situation.
Wow.
They started asking for money. He said he didn't have the money, and because they have groomed, these criminals are cyber criminals, and they know where they're headed, so they tend to groom their victims. So they had a lot of information on him, and they started to threaten him that if he didn't give them the money they needed ASAP, they were going to expose everything they knew about him. And they knew where he went to school. They knew a lot about him, that he actually was really scared that they would expose all this information about him. And he was a high-flying kid in his school. I think 17-year-old, was playing sports, was kind of a well-known student in school. So for him, the idea of that exposure was so, was so overwhelming for him that unfortunately he took his life. And his parents have been speaking out because they're saying this was a 17-year-old. They weren't checking his phone like that. They thought, he's grown, he's okay, he knows how to use these platforms. And as the father said in a video I watched, very heartbreaking, he said he was almost having a thief come right into your house and you didn't even know that the thief came into your house. And when he painted it like that, I said, that's exactly what it is. It's a thief. The only difference is it's not a burglar that's breaking down the doors, physical doors, and coming in. But it's somebody that had exposure to their son online. Very sad. So we hear those stories, right? So when people ask me, is it good or bad? My answer is, it is good and it is bad.
Wow.
And we live in a world now where it is part of our existence. It is probably here to stay, and it's going to continue to morph into different types of platforms and uses. So as parents, we can't ignore the fact that this is the world that we live in, and we have to raise our children to succeed in this world using technology and using social media. So that's how I answer it. It's not good or bad. It is good and bad. It is really how we use it and how we raise our children and young adults to use it for good.
Yeah, so I think we're going to really make this conversation about how to use social media for good, because just like my first question, a good number of people tend to have that argument. Should I allow my kids use phone? Should I not allow my kids use phone? Should I even allow them subscribe to this social media platform? Should I not do it? But since you mentioned that it can be good and it can be bad, and I think that story, that picture you painted earlier, is enough warning, for people to understand that this can really get terribly bad. But let's talk about how to use it for good. What are the opportunities on social media platforms for parents and for children?
Absolutely. So with a lot of these tools, it's really about how you use it. And I think one of the first ways that children can be taught to use it for good is for them to have the people in their lives that they look up to using it for good. So what does that mean? For example, there are people that their use of social media is to share positive messages, to encourage people, right? To talk about the good things that people are doing or that they themselves are doing. Imagine you're following somebody on social media, on whatever platform, and maybe you're following them because they sing very well or they play an instrument very well. And maybe you're an upcoming, musician yourself, and you're following their pages because you want to see their technique and you want to learn how they're playing pieces or how they're arranging music. If your children kind of see you engaging with social media in a positive way, I think it helps them to see that this can be used as a learning platform. It can be used as a platform for connecting with other people that have similar interests with you, than if all they ever see with your use of social media is to post pictures that you have changed with filters, by the way. Okay. So if a child sees that, every time mom or dad shares a picture, they see that before you post it, you've used filter, you've altered your, cheekbone, you've added freckles where they're wearing freckles, all of that. Then the child is learning that, social media is supposed to be used to present a version of yourself that doesn't even exist. So imagine children that grew up in either of those households. One of them is going to learn that, social media can be used to connect with people that I can learn something from, people that are motivational, people that are sharing something that's in line with my interest, or, social media is meant to be used for showing off. And that showing off is even a showing off where you are using filters to a level that you start to distort how you look every single time you post because you want to be seen to be better than you actually are. So those are stark examples. But those are some of the ways you can start to ask questions in your house. What are your children seeing when they see you engaging with social media? That's one immediate starting point, for example.
Okay, so I think that's really very important. Consider the fact that a good number of people, we are all humans. A good number of parents feel like I'm a person first. So that's would most likely reflect in everything I do, including my usage of social media. And a good number of times when they follow people, they just follow people based on their interest as an individual and not considering what that can look like, when their kids, see the traces of their activities online, for example, because that's the first thing that comes to play. As a social media user, who do you follow? What do you post? But so a good number of people feel conflicted between living for my kids, showing them good examples and actually really doing the things that I like. I like this celebrity. I just want to follow this person. This is the comment that naturally, comes to head when I see this post. I just want to, type whatever it is that I like. How do you manage that? How do you balance that as a parent between doing the things that you just really want, using social media for entertainment, and just living your life and living for your children, setting good examples for them?
So, at the end of the day, I feel that if you honestly don't want to be an intentional parent, then it might be easier to say, well, I just want to live my life for me. It's not always about my children. However, you brought them into this world, and the only person that's going to give them the great foundation they need so that they can thrive and make the right decisions, it lies with you, the parents, to a large extent. So while you might follow certain people, I mean, the truth is you're not always going to watch educational shows even on television. Maybe you're somebody who likes watching, I don't know, Kim's show, whatever it is. Yes, there's going to be some entertainment and downtime. However, what we're saying is that what do your children see you continuously engaging with, right? You can't only make bad choices and expect that somehow your children will learn the right things and say, but you know what, my mom and dad had to live their life. So even though this is all they did, somehow I'm going to just be so mature as a child and know exactly how to make the right choices. I think that maybe it's possible, but in what I've seen so far, I think it's very unlikely, right? I've been coaching, parenting coaching, family coaching for a decade now. And honestly, the children that learn how to use some of these tools positively have a parent who is engaging them, who is teaching them how to be critical thinkers, or their parents have enrolled them in programs, for example, that teaches them about how to be what I call responsible digital citizens, right? So I do a lot of those programs, and I really like working with children between the ages of 8 and 12 before they become heavy users. That's when you start to seed, those building blocks of when you go online, do you think about what you're consuming? The people that you choose to follow, nobody forces you to follow them, right? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay. So by the time you are clicking, you are following this person. Have you thought through what about this person's feed or page makes you want to follow them? Don't just blindly click follow because you saw one post. You just click follow. You don't have to follow them. Right? It's the same way when you go shopping. It's not everything you see in window shopping that you buy.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think all of these things, at the end of the day, it goes back to the parents thinking, what am I trying to achieve? I'm trying to raise a child who's a critical thinker, a child who's thinking about what they are doing when they are online. Because these social media apps have been created to be addictive. They have been created to give you more of what you engage with. So if you like certain types of content, you follow certain types of people, guess what? That is what the social media platforms will be giving you more and more of. So sometimes I find that it also forces you down a line that might not actually be all you want to see. But if that's what you engage with, that's what they will give you more and more. And when children understand that, I find that they are more conscious about what they are doing. So they're not just passive, consumers of whatever they see. They are thinking, why am I liking this? Why am I sharing this? What I've seen here, what's the agenda behind this post this person has put? Is it because they were paid? Is it really their opinion? When children get used to thinking about content like that, I find that they are more savvy users and consumers of the content that's coming at them 24/7.
Okay, so I think at some point we should even talk about how much time parents spend online, and as related to how much time children should also spend online, because it's been a major issue in some of these lawsuits. You mentioned addiction now, it's a major problem. But before we get to that, let's stay on content. You mentioned, or you advised now that it's very important that parents are very intentional about what they consume, what their children consume online. Now, I've also come to realize that there are increasing number of kids-related content and family-related content online. And it's only natural that a good number of parents will also want to join suit, because one of the best ways to ensure that your kids have healthy content to consume online is to create one. So what advice do you have for parents around that? What kind of content, do you really feel that parents can, focus on online?
Yeah. One of the things I like saying is that if the use of something is not understood, then abuse of that thing is likely.
Inevitable, yeah.
Yes, inevitable. Because, social media was never created for children. If we look at the history of the very first, what we call social media platform, it was Facebook. And it was Mark while he was studying. See me calling him first name like I know him. It was while he was studying psychology at Harvard that he created this platform that was supposed to essentially be a look of people's pictures who were in college there, and people would be swiping kind of to pick who they like or who they thought was attractive. that was the basis of how it started. So it was never created with children in mind. For example, educational content that's put out there on YouTube, for example, that's created for children has been created with the child's mind, with the way children learn and consume content. That is what they had in the back of their mind when those producers thought about creating a program for children. Now, the other side is that social media was never done with children in mind. It was always ever created for adults. However, because it was seen as something that was novel, nobody really thought about, the safety around it, or who could get on, when you should get on, what would be allowed to be on there. And the way I like to liken it to real life is no responsible parent is going to sit down with their 5 or 10-year-old and watch a movie that is rated X or R, right? Or 21. There's a reason movies, for example, have ratings. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they have looked at it and said this movie is not ideal for, an audience younger than 13. In fact, in certain cinemas, they wouldn't let a child who's young go into a movie that is maybe 15 and above. So with that same principle in mind, let's realize that anybody in the world, and there are almost 6 billion people, I believe now, who are online. Oh. And I think about 5 billion of those are social media users. And guess what? None of that is content that is being, nobody is giving ratings. Nobody is verifying before it's put out there. So that means that your child can consume content from billions of people and see anything whatsoever that they want to see online. And because the algorithms are made to be efficient, it's going to say, oh, Lola seems to like XYZ type of content when she or he goes on TikTok or Instagram or whatever platform. So therefore, in the For You page or your feed, we're going to be giving you more of that type of content. I think if we just even pause on that and parents realize that is what we are up against, we will realize that we can't just leave the children and hope, that they're going to make the right choices. They are going to come across content that they cannot process. And many times when they can't process the content they see, maybe it's disturbing to them, it's adult content, then they fall into that spiral of, oh, maybe I shouldn't have watched this, but they don't tell mom and dad. The algorithm starts sending them more and more of that content. Suddenly you'll be wondering why the child is addicted to a type of content. That's why they get addicted.
Okay. So now let's talk about creating content as parents, because as I mentioned earlier, we see a good number of people do this now. Some parents help their kids to create content that seem to be kid content, because of course you see children. In fact, I know a particular man that has a little girl that could rap. So in my own opinion, I think he writes out the rap for the girl. Very, harmless sounding raps. And she comes, she dances and, she sings the raps. So are these okay? Because some people believe one of the best ways to at least manage the things that your kids watch is to create more of the content that you feel it's okay for them. So what would you advise along this line for parents? Would you encourage them to create more of kid content? Would you encourage them to also involve their children in creating this content? Like I know people that do even religious content for kids. Should we push for more of this?
I think it goes both ways. I think I know the family you're talking about. It's this little girl that raps and is very cute,
yes.
And her parents are very involved what she raps.
Exactly.
Yes. So I think there's a mix. There's always going to be people that consume content, and there are going to be people that, share content. And, not everybody's going to be a creator. But if you can't be a creator and you give alternatives to the content out there that we're saying is not great. So, like you said, the topic today is about using social media for good. Mm-hmm. To use it for, in my mind, goes two ways. One is to use it for good, where you are consuming the right kind of content. For example, you are following people because you are interested in what they're saying, because it's good stuff, it's healthy, it's motivational, you are learning something fantastic. Or you are a creator yourself. So are you creating content that is good, that is positive, that just makes people laugh, is healthy? I think those are two ways. Now, Do I encourage parents necessarily to create the content, including their children in it? It really depends on each family. Not every family, for example, is ready to put their child out there on social media at a young age, right? Some are just like, you know what, even if my child has this talent and gift, let us nurture it offline until the child is ready for the what's what I'm looking for the exposure that comes with being on social media. So those are personal decisions that everybody has to make. But I do think that parents have a part to play in consuming content as well with their children. So kind of get an idea of what your children like consuming online and then engage it with them. Why do you like watching this? Oh, so who are some of your favorite YouTubers? I remember the time I asked my children that many, many years ago. I said, who are some of your favorite YouTubers? And they had a mix of different types of YouTubers that they both watched. And I got a chance to watch with them. They were pretty harmless. I think there were things along their interest, right? Imagine then that a child was watching somebody that you knew that this guy's content, even though it seems like it's clean, I can see subliminally that there's something bad going on. You then go and do research and find a way to come back to your child to say, you know, the reason I think you shouldn't watch this particular person's channel is because of, you know, these reasons. But the only way you're going to know is for you to know what they are consuming. Because children as young as 5, they already have their favorite YouTubers, for example, that they're watching on YouTube, even if they're not yet on social media. So we have to, I feel like parenting today needs a lot more hands-on involvement than it did when we were growing up, where the exposures were minimal.
Okay, so we've talked about who you follow, who you engage with as parents on social media. We've talked about even content creation and how you can also be a part of that to ensure that, you know, your kids have healthy stuff to engage with online. And another thing is that in recent times, we have noticed, you know, this increasing rate of insensitive content involving children, very harmful content involving children. There was even a particular social media content creator that got dragged to court. You know, he got arrested, he got dragged to court just because a little girl was seen in his content. Asked in the content, the girl was asked to do something that was sexually, you know, just sexually unhealthy. And it brings to question consent as parents. What factors should you consider when you are giving some of these content creators consent to involve your own children in the whatever content it is that you're creating? Because from what we learned from that recent incident involving that content creator, the girl in the video was not even the content creator's family member. Probably some of us know him. He would go randomly to different places in the name of pranks, you know, playing pranks on people and ask them to do questionable things, even sometimes pour them water, do things that seem really dangerous. So, but what is the role of parents here? Somebody comes to you and say, oh, I want to have your little girl in my content. What should you do? What are the questions you should ask? What are the reasons for you to say yes and no? You know, I think that is also very important, don't you think?
Absolutely. Because somebody says they're a content creator and wants you in their video doesn't mean you should just say, oh, really? Okay, I'm ready for that. As a parent, I think it's very important you ask. First of all, you go and watch the person's page. I mean, you go and see the kind of content they share. You know, what do they put out there so that you know if it's questionable or not. You know, you understand exactly what it is they're asking your child to do. Secondly, I think it's important for when you talk about content, it's very critical that people are aware that are they getting the correct content and is it something that you should be posting. So, for example, France, I think, is the first country that has recently released a rule now that bans parents or parenting influencers from excessively sharing content about their children. Yes, they're trying to curtail it, you know, like excessive sharing of content. I believe it's France. I think I came across it recently. So we're starting to get to a point now where more countries and more governments are coming out with rules and policies around what is acceptable on social media when we talk about content creation. You know, we say there are billions of people online and anybody can create content. You know, at second by second, there are thousands and millions bite size of content being uploaded, right? So there's now a new wave towards putting more of the responsibility on the tech companies to actually be scrubbing the content that is being shared on their platforms.
Oh, that's good.
So in the UK, for example, there's something called the Online Safety Bill that is being passed. And the idea there is that technology companies with all these social media apps, they are going to be fined if they put content out there that is not healthy for young consumers or children. So it's going to become their responsibility to clean their platforms. And it cannot only be a parent's job to always be monitoring what your child sees, what they don't see, because it can be overwhelming and you can't check everything. You can't always catch everything. So I think we're getting into that second phase now of the world where social media surprised the whole world. That's the truth. It just came in about a decade or so. Because how old is Instagram? I think it's only 11 years old. Facebook itself is only how old, So it just came, it took over the world. And I think now common sense is starting to come back. Like, wait, so this is not something that was ever meant for young consumers or children. And a lot of them are spending so much time on this platform seeing things they shouldn't be seeing. The job should not and can never be only parents to protect their children. However, parents need to be aware so that you can be the first point of call. You can be the first filter. But in terms of somebody coming to say, let your child be in my content, I would ask, what kind of content? And I see some examples of what you've done. And make sure you sign something as well.
I think it's even very important for you to know in particular the kind of content they want your kid to be in. If possible, ask for the script. Let be carried along every step of the way to know exactly, because sometimes they'll come and say, it's just for the girl to say this, and eventually it ends up being something else.